Welcome. Welcome to all viewers or listeners to this podcast, which is a podcast sharing the light of others in order to bless us. And this this particular one is with Indira Hnatiuk. Welcome, Indira.
Thank you
It's
so
a joy to have you here.
Pleasure being.
Indira has been in the healing work, a healing ministry spreading over 20 years. She's trained in, having failed to become a doctor because she became very ill. She's trained in 10 different therapies and with a degree in Chinese medicine. She has, although she worked for a long time as an acupuncturist and as an EFT practitioner, including, as I say, these 8 other therapies, she became increasingly creative in setting people free from inner blocks, inner traumas. Because of her understanding of Chinese medicine and increasing intuitive leading by divine guidance to these quicker but simpler methods of helping people and in helping people to help themselves. And this is really her great strength, because she doesn't hold on to what she knows, she shares it. So Indira, it's a great blessing for me to welcome you here. And I just want to share my image of this series. We are all made in the image of our Creator, but it's up to us whether we follow the path to share in the life of love and light, overcoming the many trials and temptations of life, receiving healing and growing in wisdom, and being able to help others with what we have received and learned. You have done this. And what is awesome is the wonder of our differences, even when we have found ourselves being drawn into eternal purposes. There is no square box in which we all fit, I'm glad to say. Only in love and purpose can we be considered the same. So, Indira, I'd like to start. Would you like to comment on this introduction before we ask you specific questions about your journey?
First of all, thank you so much for that introduction. That's so sweet of you. And yeah, it's just been a process of asking questions over the years and trying to find solutions. Some of it was because, I had health challenges and wellness challenges myself. So, I was motivated from the inside on how to find solutions. So, and now I'm very blessed to be able to share them with other people too.
Thank you, Indira. So, what was the beginning of your journey?
The beginning of my journey, like my mum had a few health problems, and in my family we were actually taught how to heal. So my grandpa was a healer, and I got taught how to heal as a child. And because my mum wasn't very well, then I started, I was and like, I was doing healing sessions for her and getting intuitive guidance of like, this is how to heal her when she wasn't very well. And I didn't know where it came from. I just was like, I want to help mum. I've got this idea, like, mum, I've got this idea, like, do you want to try it? And she tried it and it'll work. I'm like, oh, phew, mum's better. Okay, so that was basically how we started when I was a child. And I just got so fascinated, and then obviously when I had some health issues, then, I already had a bit of groundwork in, thinking outside the box and asking, intuition kind of, what do I need to do? What can I do?
Wonderful. So, what would you say that was the growth of this? What was the catalyst for the next step?
The catalyst was I went traveling when I was 19. We went to a number of different countries, and I almost died in three countries. So, on one side, I had an asthma attack in the sea in Spain, and then the following country, I had dengue fever, and which is very intense. And then the last country, I had a very severe case of bronchitis. And when I got back to my home country, I'm just like, like, at that point, because I'd been through so much, then I had chronic fatigue. Later, they would have diagnosed it as fibromyalgia syndrome, and basically, what it meant was I had um, very low energy. Like I had a one-bedroom flat, and I would time how many times a day I'd go from one room to another because it was like running a marathon for me, and I would, go, okay, so I can go to the next room now and be able to do that. My memory didn't work. So like if you came to my house, I had the living room was basically a big room, the sofa on one side and a kitchen on one side, okay? And I wouldn't have asked you if you wanted tea or coffee because by the time I'd gone over, switched the kettle on, by the time the kettle had boiled, I wouldn't have remembered whether you wanted tea or coffee. And I was in my 20s, I was way too embarrassed to admit that I had an issue and way too embarrassed to kind of to do anything about it. I didn't want to like maybe I can write it down, but I'm like, oh, that looks so lame. Kind of like so I had all these different things. I'm just like, I'm just not gonna ask. They can come round and that'll be fine. Okay. Um, but it had knock-on effects. It was like I didn't go out by myself because I didn't know if I'd have enough memory to get myself back home. And since it was like 30 years ago, this was before Google Maps and, before mobile phones and all that good stuff. Um, so I had low memory, I had massive anxiety, PTSD, and, you know, my life went from I'm a medical student, I'm doing all this stuff to kind of like nothing happening, right? And I basically had to figure out how to put myself back together. And one time I'm praying and basically saying, why is this happening to me? And I got this message, if you want a really good mechanic, you give them a broken car to fix. I'm like, so I've got to try and train with a broken brain? Oh, fine. Okay. So I didn't have any choice. I literally had no choice. I knew I could heal. I knew that the brain could repair itself. And I knew that there was more to life than the 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 usual things that we saw. I've been to the doctor. The doctor was like, let's do your blood tests. We can't see anything in the blood tests, and my face just fell. Like, and he just took one look at me and he was just like, maybe it's psychological. I'm like, oh, okay, how do I fix that? He's like, I don't know. So it gave me a glimmer of hope. Maybe there's something. Okay, maybe there's some other kind of way. Went to see a counselor, like, this is what I'm experiencing, physical symptoms. Can you help? And they're like, not really trained for that. Sorry. Okay. And I just kept on asking questions, finding people. Obviously, no internet at that point, no diagnosis, no nothing. So I just basically was just like every day kind of praying, intuiting, trying to find snippets to be able to help me feel better.
Can I make a comment? So
Sure.
you're given phenomenal resilience even at that very early stage.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually a mum by that point as well, so I didn't have any choice. I just, I'm just like I have to try and get through the day and look after my child. You know, that's no choice. You know,
Yes, I understand the no choice. I felt that too. So yeah, interesting.
and like I mean, like it sounds dire, but I was able to create a lot of happiness for myself and the people around me during that time because, as long as they didn't expect me to remember what I said yesterday, we were fine.
So come on, move us forward.
Okay. Um, so at one point, someone said, there's this lady who's a therapist. I really want you to go and see her. I'm like, sure, okay, I'll try
Try
anything.
anything.
So I went to see her, and I said, these are the physical symptoms I have: aches, pains. If I walk down an aisle in a supermarket, it feels like there's volcanoes going off in my hips of like hot pain, And I just like I'd already figured out that there was no damage going on, so it was just a case of making faces and getting through it, right? Um, so I'd said some of these symptoms to her, and she did a process of finding out what I now know are meridians, which are my self-healing systems. But I had no idea what she was doing. Okay. And she did this diagnosis process and then said to me, do you also get massive anxiety? And have you got memory issues? And do you have brain fog? And do you get confused? I'm like, yes. How do you know that? And she said, it's because everyone has self-healing systems and your healing systems aren't working properly at the moment. I'm like, okay. Okay, I understand. Okay, so for most people, they go to bed at night, their repair systems are working, they wake up in the morning and they've got like a newer body than they went to sleep. It's repaired, we have energy. And my body wasn't doing that. So I'm like, can you help me? Okay, so she got me better, right? I got my energy back. My memory worked again. My emotions were not doing this all the time. I was emotionally stable. I felt like I had my life back. Um, and then I'm like, how do I learn what you do? What is this magic you speak of, right? And Chinese medicine degree, she'd helped me with that. And she was actually a teacher at the university that she learned from. Okay, so I applied for it and got in. And my memory was so much better was I was able to actually complete a Bachelor of Science honors degree from I wouldn't offer you coffee to that. And it's due to the wisdom that she had in the treatments that she gave me that I was able to rebuild my brain and use it again. So ever since then, I've been super keen on helping people to go, from wherever you're at, what's blocking you. It's not necessarily what's wrong with your body, it's what's preventing your natural self-healing systems from doing what they're meant to be doing.
This is so important, Indira. This is why this must go out
Yeah.
to help people understand because we're in such a, I don't know whether you agree, but we're in such a society where um, we're very suspicious of anything that isn't a doctor with a stethoscope or, a church, very specifically. Um, and we condemn ourselves. And that's so the antithesis of healing. So I maybe you can give an example of you needing to find that. But you didn't do it. You learned not to condemn yourself actually as a child, really, didn't you?
Well, I think everyone goes through times where we don't think there's an option out there. And, and you know, there was a lot of the time where I was looking, but I hadn't actually found anything that worked. Um, so, you just learn coping processes or ignoring processes and do your best to keep going when to keep going, right? Um, so, but because I'd seen my mum heal herself through means outside, like the medical profession is amazing in so many ways, but when it doesn't work, then if we know that we can ask questions elsewhere, okay, then it opens up doorways. Okay. And you're right. Like, when um, like even when I was, introduced to this lady who helped me, okay, because someone else had had results, she told me about her. And that's why I had the confidence to go and see her. It wasn't like, oh, I think this would help me. I'm going to go and find somebody. I was so lucky that it was like, okay, let's try this, you know? Um, so yeah, sometimes it's just finding someone who's already been there.
Yeah.
So
And we really need to be open to hearing. So go on.
Was. When this person mentioned her, I had this heart feeling,
Ah,
and there was this like, oh, this feels right, you know? And I'm like, yes. Okay. And then I met her and I asked her lots of questions and I just got more of the this feels right. And then I had the evidence of like, I'm getting slightly better.
yeah,
Okay, this evidence is going to help me
yeah.
continue. So yeah,
But it's
that's
very interesting that it came through your heart first rather than your head. Although your head went to see her, did yeah, but nonetheless, when you heard about her, your heart responded. And this is an important facet for anyone listening. We are made in God's image. We are connected with whatever you call God or the creator or universe or whatever. We are connected and we do have these little signs if we're willing to respond and listen. So you'll hear Indira talking about her intuition leading her. So would you like to tell us another step on the journey?
sure. Um, so I was I was being shown healing where it was like if you tune into yourself, you can find out information about somebody else. So I would basically go into a state, connect to God, and then find out information about the person to be able to help them. But I wasn't very confident in this. Okay.
I
I was,
understand.
but, but maybe I can get them to do it for themselves. Okay. So then I started teaching people this method and going, and basically, just from a science point of view, okay, from the science point of view, you have the front part of your brain, which is your conscious mind, and then somewhere in there is your subconscious mind. Okay. And some of those looks after, like, the temperature, it looks after your digestion, it looks after your breathing, your heart, all those things, right? Um, and there's part of you that has to know everything about you. It looks after the subconscious, right? So if I was to say to you, kind of, are you too hot or too cold? Like 5 minutes ago, you may not have been aware of that. You might have just been aware of the computer screen and chatting, right? Um, but as soon as I ask you that question, it goes to the subconscious and it goes, oh, how am I? Oh, I'm fine. Thank you very much. I'm too cold, right? And I was playing with it. What other questions can I ask myself? Okay. And and what instructions can I give myself? So I studied something called hypnotherapy. And hypnotherapy is basically getting the brain to be in a relaxed state and giving it instructions. Now, I know some people have got all different views on hypnotherapy, but basically, if you're going to instruct the brain and you get it in a relaxed state first, and you instruct it, and then people get better, they've had backache for 20 years, it goes away, or that kind of stuff, then that's to me, that's just God healing through a different way, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So,
that's how I see it.
right. So I'm like, okay, so I've got this thing where I can ask my intuition questions. And I've got this other thing where if I can instruct the brain to do things, it can do things. I wonder what happens if I put that together. Okay. So then I started interviewing people and saying, if people came to me as a client, I'd say, okay, so I'd explain to them they could ask their brain questions. I call it the inner self. And I'd say, for instance, if they had like lung issues, a cold or something, I'd say, check in, you've got a healing system that looks after your lungs. Out of 10, how much energy does it have? And I'd go through a longer process, but they'd be able to give me a response, you know, and I was able to then guide those responses, and help them to be able to actually um, instruct their brain to activate healing systems. Okay. Everyone has healing systems. Sometimes they just need rebalancing.
And this all comes back to the will, doesn't it? You know,
Uh,
it, if we don't have a will for healing, if we're not willing to engage with the process, we're not going to get healed, you know?
So yes, and also there's other ways that I've tried, which I call the wish and hope method. Okay. Um, you know, there was a time in my life where I had two or three big emotional things happen, and I'd been well for ages. I was driving for fun, driving a truck across Australia. I was dancing. I was just, I was full of energy, full of beans, had my life back. And then two or three massive emotional things happened to me, and my body reacted with a rheumatoid arthritis and stopped absorbing food. I was losing half a kilo a week, um, and a pound a week, and they medical profession, they did a whole bunch of checks and was like, yes, it's rheumatoid arthritis, and no, we can't figure out why your digestive system isn't working. Okay. So I was busy asking, kind of, first of all, I tried the wish and hope method, okay, which is I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. Hasn't worked yet. Okay. So partially, even though I was willing to get better, okay, I didn't know how to. So just by will alone, I didn't have the strategy.
No, no, you've got to know what to do. And
Yeah,
this is where God comes in, all,
exactly.
processes.
Yeah. But by that point, I was trained in 10 different
Yeah,
therapies.
yeah.
Very, very, because I probably wouldn't be here otherwise. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I remember the mechanic conversation we had when I was in my 20s. I'm like, okay, I'm in my 40s now. I'm trained in 10 different therapies. There must be a reason. What am I missing? Okay. And I kept on trying this and trying this and trying this, and it, it wasn't necessarily working. And then one day I just got this, I was like, there has to be a different way. There has to be a way I can get full health. I'm like, actually, that part of me that knows everything about me, the part that knows where I put every single belief, decision, old emotional event, and what every single cell's doing, to get to full health, it knows how many things have to be done, how many limiting beliefs there are, how many limiting decisions, but how many old emotional events I've stuffed down and I'm just like ignoring the whole lot, right? And I'm like, inner self, to get completely better, how many things do I need to do? And there was this long pause, and the number came back 6,752. Like, that's a lot of things. Okay. And I knew some techniques to be able to heal them one by one by one. And I'm like, I need faster ways because literally I'm not going to see Christmas. Okay. And I got shown the faster ways. Okay. It was like I was just tuning in and from universe, God, intuition, whatever you call it, I was like, it's like this. And I got this very simple, very beautiful structure of how to access the healing systems and get better. Okay, it was an upgrade on what I'd been teaching people. Um, so I was like, okay, I'll try that out. Okay, and I did the process, and I did the processes, until I got to the point. 3 months later, I was better. I went from 6 stone, riddled with arthritis, couldn't move, kind of even with help, couldn't walk, um, massive pain every day, to 3 months later, I was back at work again, teaching people, running 5 day, helping to run 5 day intensive teaching events. And, you know, I had my energy back. And these days I can dance and run around and do what I like again. Okay. I don't have any medication. I don't need any medication, you know. And I'm very, very grateful that I got shown that. And because of my kind of gratitude of like, oh my goodness, that was it was such an amazing gift for me that I want to share it with as many people as possible. So, you know, it's mostly I work with mindset. So, I know and the side effects are a lot of the time people's aches and pains go away. But most of the time it's like, how do we um like we know about muscles. If you want to go to the gym, then you can build up your muscles. If you just do a little bit of exercise at home or go for a walk, you're going to build up some muscles. Okay. So what these are, um, they're healing muscles. They're not really muscles, but they're healing things that we can power up. So I teach people how to find them and how to look after them on a regular basis so that they can have really strong healing systems so that just in case something was to happen, okay, they're just as like if if you've got really strong muscles, if something were to happen, then you can jump out of the way or you can pick something up or you've got that strength there, the inner power, the ability to have the inner power to have your emotional strength, your healing strength all powered up, then you're more resilient. If something happens, you're more likely to bounce back quicker. Maybe even like not even have any injury in there at all, just kind of, like, oh, bypass that one. Okay. So yes, this is why I'm so passionate about it, because literally it saved my life. And there's other issues that I've had where, I've been able to reverse things as well, which has been, you know, amazing for me. And look, I used to have these were all swollen up and I could hardly move my hands. I couldn't shut my hands rather. I got stuck in a jumper once. It's crazy. I had to have help to get out of a jumper. And they've all reversed now, so I don't have any rheumatoid arthritis left.
It's awesome. I mean, and your continuing yes is 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 um is awesome too.
Thanks.
Um, I don't want to tread on ground that isn't part of your journey, but in a sense, every bit of our life is part of our journey, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you want to comment on that?
Um, so um I think that um whenever I've gone through challenges, then it's been on one side it's been a challenge. And then they say like there's always a silver lining. And I think there's a silver lining if you create it. Okay, there's not always a silver lining that naturally comes. Um, I know when I look back on things that there are things that really hurt at the time. And I thought they were going to hurt forever. I thought that was it, I'm broken. Okay. And when I learned things like the tapping, which is activating the self-healing systems, and it's tapping on various points in the body, and they heal your emotions. I went from this is 10 out of 10, it's never going to leave me to I remember what happened, but it's not pressing my buttons anymore. It's just gone. And when I teach people, like, you can do this for yourself, okay, the pain that you're carrying around, it's not forever if you know how. Okay. And it's called emotional freedom technique or tapping. Okay. There's lots of videos on it. If you want to go onto my site, then I have a free course. If you went on to emotionalfreedomforsuccess.com, okay, I have a free course on how to turn down stress in seconds. And it's two techniques. One is a way to be able to turn down stress in seconds, but also if you want to learn more, then there's some tapping videos as well, how to tap. So, it's like, like I've been there. I know in my 20s where I'm like, my stress systems are super wide, high. I'm like, I'm gonna be like this forever. I'm only 20, I'm only 22, you know? And now if I could go back to her and said, no, it doesn't have to be forever. Here, use this. Okay. And like all the techniques I teach people, I'm using them on myself as well. If a challenge happens, then I'm, tapping on these points to be able to help calm my nervous system down. A
Can, can,
calmer.
can I give it just a bit of a testimonial?
Yes,
Um,
please.
Indira and I were both on a business course 5 years ago. Uh, I can't remember, 4 or 5 years ago. And it was on, we had a Facebook page, and I saw one of the testimonials of her clients. And I thought, she's doing God's work. So I asked her if we could have a talk because it said that she'd said in one of her things that she'd suffered and grown through it, and I was suffering and growing through it. And we talked for 2 hours. It felt like 10 minutes. I don't know. Maybe it didn't for Indira, but it did for me. And at the end of the time, she said, "Can I offer you something?" So I said, and I prayed, and I felt totally at peace, like she did with her acupuncture person, and uh, and I said yes. So she said, I'd just like us to do some tapping about what you said about feeling that you carry death around with you. Well, I did feel as if I carried death around with me, and I just knew I had that it was my lot. And within, I think it was about 2 minutes, maybe even less than that, it had come from the darkness. It's in it's in our subconscious, but also locked in our bodies. So it had come into the conscious, and I was filled with shame and weeping. And it was the last abuse that I'd suffered that was locked away. Now that is awesome. So she carried on tapping, and by the end of that time, it had gone. Now I had to then go into more conscious levels of dealing with this, but that's the wonder and the miracle and the forgive me for taking away from your grace, but this is what God has made. He's given us. And if you don't know the prayer of St. Paul for the Ephesians, look at Ephesians 4, Ephesians 3, 14 to 19. And it's about the inner being, so that you are rooted and grounded in love. That's what Indira does.
Thank you so much for sharing, Marina. And to see you clear something so deep in 2 minutes was, I always feel really honored and blessed when someone trusts me with their, with their story, and like to see how much you've grown and how much more joy you have since.
Absolutely.
So lovely to see. An absolute pleasure.
Is there anything else that you'd like? So, can I just remind you, if you want to know more about Indira's work, if you go to emotionalfreedom.com, and there are, sorry,
Emotionalmasteryforsuccess.com.
oh, emotional mastery for success.com. Okay, so if you go to that, you can find more about her and some of her awesome tools, for want of a better word, to enable you to access the healing processes that God has given you because you're made in His image. Anything else that you want to add?
Thank you so much, Marina. Thank you so much for your lovely questions and your wonderful testimonial. I really, really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure being here with you.
Well, thank you very much. God bless you. And I just pray that lots of people will see this and will be able to find the the grace and the truth that you carry, and you enable them to learn.
Thank you.
So God bless you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to stop the recording now. It says stop recording. Has it stopped at that? No, recording. Right.